Hi, I'm Julia. Welcome to my garden. Today we happen to be in my berry garden where I have blueberries and raspberries and blackberries and honeyberries and strawberries, as well as some beautiful roses. And today we are pruning my raspberries. So I have 4 beds and there are 2 different types of raspberries. So I'm going to try to explain to you what the types are and how we prune them and give you a demonstration on how I do it. And it is late winter, early spring here. We're at the very end of March. In general, for plants that you need to prune, late winter, early spring is a great time, especially here in my northern zone. Things are still dormant, but we don't have a thick layer of snow on the ground, and it's a little bit more pleasant to work outside than when it's really, really cold in winter. If you're in a warmer climate, the fall might also be a great time to do this. Before you start pruning your raspberries, there are a couple things you should know. First of all, there are different canes. There are primocanes and floricanes, and the difference here is how old they are. So the primocanes are first-year canes, so the canes that come up this year, and then the floricanes are their second year. They have come up and then they spend a winter, and the next year they're floricanes. Hopefully that makes sense to you. If you have questions, ask below. And I have different types of raspberries. Some of them fruit on the primocanes, on those first year canes, and some of them fruit on the floricanes, the second year canes. So it's very important to know which variety you have, because if you have a variety that fruits on floricanes and you cut them all down every fall or every spring, you're not going to get any fruit because they don't fruit on the first year, they fruit the second year. So it is very important for you to know what variety of raspberries you have. If you move somewhere and there are already raspberries established, give them 2 years to see, like watch the canes, see how it works, so that you know and don't cut off your fruit production. I have 4 beds of raspberries and I actually have 2 beds of each of the varieties. So I have Killarney and Purple Royalty, and those both fruit on floricanes or second year canes, and they generally have an earlier harvest than the other ones because again those canes have survived over winter, right? And so then they're ready to fruit earlier than the ones that have to grow the canes from new growth every year. So yes, I have Killarney and Purple Royalty over here. Then on the other side of the berry garden, I have 2 varieties that fruit on primocanes. And the cool thing about these is sometimes they're called fall bearing and sometimes they're called ever bearing. But some of these varieties will also give you crops on floricanes, on second year canes as well. So you let them give you a fall crop on their primocanes that first year, and then the next year you just cut off the tops where they've already fruited because they won't fruit in that same place twice. And then you may get a summer crop on those floricanes and then a new crop on the primocanes that have grown the next year. So the varieties I have that fruit on primocanes or are fall or ever-bearing varieties are Anne Yellow and a Heritage, which is red. I should have also mentioned the Killarney is a red raspberry as well. And I have to tell you, the Anne Yellow one is amazing. I love yellow raspberries, and so do my kids. So I highly recommend that one. Now, as may be apparent from my explanation, I will be pruning these in slightly different ways. So let me show you more close up how I'm going to prune these varieties. I am here with my Purple Royalty raspberries. These fruit on floricanes or second year canes. And it is pretty weedy. Ideally, I would have weeded it first, but I was looking for some dry days, a stretch of dry days, so that I could prune without worrying about them getting all wet and possibly, leading to infection or something bad happening. So I was looking for a stretch of dry days, and this is where we are, and we just have to get pruning done. So I might do some weeding that's in the way, but we're gonna try to weed and do like compost and stuff another day. So there are 2 types of canes in this bed right now, because I haven't pruned them since last spring. So we have canes that grew last year, that were primocanes last year and are ready to fruit that this year. And that's these ones. You can kind of tell they're really, okay, I'm gonna put my glove on because they can also be really pricky. Hang on. So these are like the nicely colored ones, and they're kind of bendy, and if I were to cut into it, I would see green in there. There'd be some green in there. So those grew last year, did not fruit, and they should give me fruit this year. There are other canes in here, and they might be a little harder to see because I think some of them are shorter down here. They break really easily. But there are canes in here that are really old. Here, I just took a part off. That are older. These fruited last year and the canes have died back, so they're completely dead. So I'm just going to be going back and taking to the ground these canes that fruited last year and now are just done. So again, I'm just looking for, I'm not going to cut these ones here that look great. I'm going to cut ones that look like they're just dead. And if I'm not sure about something, what I'll do is I'll start at the top. And if I'm not seeing green, I'll go ahead and keep cutting down until I see green. And if I don't, then, it'll be cut off at the bottom. So that's what I'm going to do in this bed with the purple royalty. And I'm going to do the same thing with the Killarney. To be honest, there's probably a simpler method for this, and that is that after these are done fruiting for the year, you just go in and cut them back. You know which one's just fruited. You can see like the leftover, fruit stuff on them. Just cut those ones back, and then you'll be all set for next year. I have not been that on top of it, so again, I'm doing it now. I don't even know if I did this last spring, so this might be cutting stuff from a couple years ago as well. We're just gonna get it cleaned up. It'll get done eventually. I am now on the other side near my Ann yellow raspberries, and I have Heritage right over there. And again, these fruit on first year canes. These ones have not been as vigorous for me, but I do need to do some work on the soil in the berry garden in general. So hopefully we can get them to be a little bit more vigorous. You can see here where all the fruit was. And so there is two different ways to handle this. You can just cut where the fruit was off here. Boop. That's tiny. These ones are ones from after the frost. The frost got them before they developed. And you can see in here, it's actually still green. This cane is still alive. And so you can, just leave that. And I can see spots where they might fruit this year. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do for these this year, is just cut off the tops. I'll probably do it on both, cut off the tops. I don't know if I cleaned it up last year again. So I have some like spindly growth in here that I'll probably just take out of the base. But otherwise, we're just going to kind of lop the tops off so that we can get an earlier harvest on these floor canes, as well as a new harvest on the primal canes. Now, I have heard some people claim that you'll get a better harvest in the fall if you just cut them all down. And that kind of makes sense, because then the roots of the plant can just send its energy into the primal canes and into the fruiting in the fall. But yeah, we're not going to try that this year. Maybe in future years we'll try doing like half and half and let you know how it goes. But this year, I think I'm just going to cut the tops off because mainly it's easier. Okay, let's do that. We are actually late enough in the season. It's a little bit later than I would normally do this. But because of that, I can already see buds. So I'm hoping you can see on here, we've got a bud right here, a bud right here. There might be one that's coming up right here, but I think I'm going to cut up right above that nice bud there. There we go. And I'm pretty excited about getting fruit this year. I'm hoping for a good berry year. Okay. I got my pruners because they seem like a better tool for this kind of thing than my loppers, which are a little bit bigger. And I got my pop-up bag to put the debris in. Some of these were growing too far out into the path for my liking, so I'm taking those ones out, all the way out. There will be more certainly that pop up there, and I just need to redefine the edges of the bed a little bit better, or really edge them at all. That's on my to-do list. And then hopefully, if things pop up outside, where the edge of the bed is, I can dig them up and put them back in. We do have a spot at the end that could use a few more plants. Right. So this is the same thing I'm going to do with my heritage raspberries, which are on the end here, and those are red ones. I'd have to say out of all of them, I actually do enjoy the yellow and the purple the most. And the purple are my most vigorous plants by far. If you don't get to something like this, I mean, you can always come back to it. Like if I couldn't get to it now, I can always come. Like the primo canes or the primo canes are going to grow either way, whether or not I leave these. So if you don't get to it in a year, or you have to do it, you know, in the summer or later, that's okay. The one thing I would advise when you're doing pruning like this is to try to find a dry period. Don't do it while it's raining. Don't do it when it's supposed to rain that night or the next day, because that can encourage disease to get into the stalks and the plants. It just leaves them more vulnerable to like fungal and other diseases. So I do try to prioritize finding a dry period to do this, which is why we're trying to get it done right now. I've spent part of yesterday and part of today pruning my fruit trees as well for the same reason. We just had, I can't remember if it was last weekend or the weekend before, we had a pretty big snowstorm, our biggest since January. We've only had 2 or 3 good snows this year where we've, had a bunch stick, and we got about a foot, maybe a little less than a foot, 11, 12 inches, somewhere in there. And then it took a while. It was on the ground for a while. Then this past week we got some rain, which helped finish melting it. We actually see like a little bit of clumps here and there, but it's pretty much gone. But the ground's been so soggy and wet, and so I can do. This is I think the second day it hasn't been raining, and so I am taking advantage of that. It is though supposed to rain again some more this coming week for like 4 days. So I'm trying to get it all done on the early side. And it is, let's see, I think it's Saturday today while I'm doing this. So it rained up through like Thursday night. I waited till Friday afternoon to prune. I'm pruning Friday and Saturday. And if I have to finish some things up on Sunday, I can. It's supposed to rain again on Tuesday or Tuesday afternoon. So I probably won't do any pruning on Monday. I finished 3 out of the 4 beds. The Killarney on the side, which is one of the summer bearing or floricane flute fruiting ones, it's just so weedy. I couldn't really see well in there, so I'm just gonna have to prune it when I weed it. It takes 1 to 2 hours to weed a bed. That one probably closer to 2 because it's so weedy, depending how fast I'm moving. So it's some time, it's a time commitment. I like to thoroughly weed it, and I would love to also edge it if I can and lay some compost down. So I'm gonna try to find some time to do that in the next week or 2, and then it'll all look nicer. But I did finish pruning. I took all of the old canes out from the base of the purple royalty because that fruits on floricanes. So I got rid of all the older canes that had already fruited, and I have lots of nice new canes that grew last year that are ready to fruit for me this year. And then I just took the fruiting tops off of the ones that are fall or ever bearing, and I did cut back some that looked like they might have been older and had already gone through a couple seasons and won't fruit again, or were just really spindly. So I took those out and cleaned it up. Again, they all still need to be weeded. Hopefully those ones won't take as long. So that's where I am. I hope that was helpful to you and you learned how to prune raspberries, or you just enjoyed coming along as I worked on mine. Gardening season is finally starting for me here in earnest. The weather is warming up and it is feeling like spring, so I'm really excited to get into things, and I will hopefully have more videos out as I do that. As always, I hope you are all well. Happy gardening. I'm giving you a sneak peek right now of the little woodland area, the honeyberry beds. There's some stakes and some edging happening. It's gonna transform over the next month or two. Exciting stuff happening.